Hi, everyone. Welcome to Youth Connections Café, Bell Let's Talk, hosted by Moksha Canada Foundation and Bell Let's Talk. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Lynn McEntee. I'm your host for the program today, and we humbly arrive on the scene to share with you community resources and have a bit of talk with some of our youth as well who's attending. We encourage you to reach out to us on social media. Give us a like. If you have any ideas for programs and such, please do so. Before we get started, I'll do a virtual land acknowledgement for wherever we are today. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous people of all the lands that we're on. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we all call home. So welcome to all of you, wherever you're tuning and listening in from, and I really appreciate you being here. Bell Let's Talk is about connecting, creating, and inspiring the young people of today, sort of age range 16 to 24, although we've had some younger people on as well too, and older people all the way up to 30 range. We encourage you to participate in our programming, and it's about underscoring mental health issues and reaching community resources that are available to us and shining light in all the work that people do in our communities. We have some amazing guests here today. I'll actually just briefly start out with Sarah briefly because she's been here before, and I'll just introduce her and then we'll kind of go back and forth in the conversation. So Renaldo, if you're okay with that for just this moment in time, allow me to do that. All right. So again, we're here for Bell Let's Talk Community Resources. Our guest speaker is Sarah Bowers-Peters, and she is from the Ontario Association of Crimestoppers, Guelph, Wellington. And she'll introduce herself briefly for a moment, but I also then wanted to shine light on Renaldo Wall, who is from the Evergreen Center from Street Youth at Yonge Street Mission on Spadina and College in downtown Toronto. So a bit of a mix, a bit of a different types of conversation we'll be having and underscoring all the work that you both do. So shout out to Sarah for being here once again. She's been on some of our other programs before. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. And thank you for the introduction. Yes, I am the program coordinator for Crimestoppers Guelph Wellington. I also sit on the Ontario Association of Crimestoppers, representing 37 programs across Ontario.
Woohoo! Right on. Awesome. Thank you very much. Alrighty. And Renaldo Wall, I'm just going to do a little shout out for Renaldo. He actually ran a marathon a couple of weeks ago. So we were talking about that off camera. So shining light on you just a little bit more, Renaldo, for not only the work that you do with the community and the Yonge Street Mission, but maybe you might want to tell our guests about that too. So welcome to the program today.
No, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And just to clarify, it was a half marathon. I don't want to toot my horn too much, but it was definitely my first time attempting anything like that, possibly my last, but it was fulfilling and enriching experience for sure. And thank you again, Lynn, for the introduction. As you said, my name is Renaldo. I'm the Director of Street Involved Services at Yonge Street Mission. And so we work primarily with vulnerable youth, helping to support them with wraparound care support, goal-centered programming, relief services, all of this really to help them towards a journey of life stabilization, but also transformation.
That's cool. Thank you very, very much. And I just wanted to confirm volume. Is everyone okay with volume? And do we need to increase volume at all? I can hear you mostly. Renaldo, I just want to make sure that everybody's hearing you okay. Yeah. A little bit more. A little bit. Are you able to increase the volume just a wee bit?
Let me see. Let me try to.
Yeah. For sure. While I'm talking to Jack, how about we play around with that if you're okay? Just want to make sure we're hearing everything that you have to offer in this conversation. So I'm getting about maybe 80%. I don't know if that works. Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Renaldo. Really appreciate that. And Jack, thank you so much for joining us once again. Jack has been a guest of ours on a few different programs, and he's also been a guest attendee as he is today. So thank you so much for joining us, Jack. And if you want to do a short introduction on where you come from and what you bring to the table, Jack.
I'm from Toronto. I work with the other youth, like the youth advisory thing. And I sent you the pictures.
Thank you. Thank you.
The age is 18 to 20.
Nice.
And so I've been there since January 19.
Wow.
So,
Thank you, Jack.
and I even speak to the last conference in Ottawa, and next year I'll be speaking again. So I'm doing really well.
You are, Jack, and so the program that Jack is talking about is another program he works with, is R for inclusion. So capital R, number 4, and then inclusion. So thank you so much, Jack, for highlighting that for anybody that's listening and tuning in today or in the future. I'm going to check your volume one more time there, Renaldo, if that's okay, before we jump into it. Kind of just muted right now, but that's okay. Maybe.
How's that? Is that better?
It's better. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. We got it. Okay.
Right on. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Okay,
No
here we
worries.
go, folks. We're off and running. We're here for Bell Let's Talk. We're connecting, creating, and inspiring. And thank you to Moksha Canada for allowing us to be here as well. We've met our guests and where they come from. We're talking about community resources. We're underscoring mental health in all aspects of the work that we do. And we're trying to reach marginalized populations as well. So thank you for allowing us to be here. The second question to our guests was, what role do you play in your organization, which you covered in the introduction, but I wondered if perhaps we can expand upon that a little bit more. And let's see, Renaldo, do you want to go into that one? Oh, sorry, just lost the volume there. Oh. It was awesome before. It was really good. You know what? How's that? I'm seeing
Is that better?
It's better. Yeah, we're up to about 70%.
Okay, all right. Maybe I'll try to speak a little louder just in case.
Sure. Yeah, cool. Okay, just want to make sure we hear every word that you have to. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, what role do you play in your organization? You can feel free to expand upon that.
For sure. So, as I said, I'm the director of Street Involved Services at Yonge Street Mission. So, at Yonge Street Mission, we serve 3 main population groups. So, we serve adults, we serve families, and then we serve youth. And so, I oversee our youth population programs and services. I oversee a site called Evergreen Center for Street Involved Youth. And so within that building, I'd like to refer to it as the Costco of youth services, because you can kind of experience a little bit of everything that you need around youth support. So within that building, within that center, we have a youth drop-in center. We serve lunches and dinner as well. So we serve meals to youth who come in. We do pride ourselves on being low barriers. That's one of the principles by which we operate. We also have a fully functioning health center. So we have different volunteer health practitioners who will come in, as well as a fully functioning dental clinic to support youth. We also have a housing worker. We have mental health workers on site. We have we call it workforce development. So we have employment counselors who help to prepare youth for job readiness and job training. And we also have case managers. So we have case managers who work with justice involved youth, and then those who work with young parents as well. So we do a little bit of everything to support youth from different angles. We are working to develop other programs around educational supports for young people as well, and to even strengthen some of our case management practices. But ultimately, we're really working, we aim to work with youth who really are in need. So those who are coming from adverse situations, who are either street involved, homeless, precariously housed, coming from priority neighborhoods. So all youth who really are in need, we try to provide them with all of the services, programs, supports necessary so that they can, not just receive a level of stabilization in their lives, but so that they can actually move to a place of thriving in areas of their lives as well.
Well, so then your role is quite vast, actually. So you kind of feed into various types of the program. It's not just one in particular, a boxed-in job description.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a little bit of everything. And so I guess the part of my role is really taking these different pieces, these different services and programs, and really trying to ensure that they coalesce and integrate them into a holistic model by which to support the young people who come into our care.
Very cool. I think we'll be expanding upon that some more as we go here. Thank you very much. And that helps to launch the conversation for sure. Sarah, I'm going to jump over to you. Same question, if you could expand upon your role with Crimestoppers Guelph Wellington.
Sure. So as the program coordinator, my responsibilities are to engage with the community, make sure they're aware of Crimestoppers. And for those who maybe are not familiar, Crimestoppers is not the police. We are a separate organization. We act as an intermediary between the public and the police. Although we have a great relationship with our police partners, we know not everyone in the community does. And if they feel so compelled to report crime that's happening in their community, they can do so anonymously and confidentially by calling 1-800-222-TIPS or by going to our website, csgw.tips. And of course, if you're not in the Guelph Wellington area, which I know a lot of your viewers are in the GTA, there are a number of programs throughout Hamilton, Halton, Peel, Toronto, York, all that area there that you can get involved with, whether it's volunteering, especially for youth opportunities. There's volunteer hours you can get through Crimestoppers. But the main purpose of our organization is to offer an anonymous and confidential method of reporting crime. Again, you'll never have to testify in court. You don't have to have a police officer attend your location. You don't have to go to a police detachment. And for a lot of people who just want to do the right thing for their community to help keep it safe, this is a really great option because you don't have to deal with what could be maybe traumatizing, or you just have a real concern about making yourself known directly to police. And that's what Crimestoppers is all about, is still doing the right thing without having to worry about, like I say, going to a court case and attending in court and testifying in a public way. We also offer a cash reward option, which is where if your information leads to an arrest, you can receive a cash reward of up to $2,000. And each program has a board of directors. It's their job to make sure that they raise funds that can pay these rewards out to tipsters. So when people say to me, but do you really get a cash reward? If your information leads to an arrest, yes, you can qualify for a cash reward. And we have a lot of great volunteers in our communities, again, through and talents to the Crimestoppers movement and help keep their communities safe.
Well, that's cool. Thank you very much to both of you. Any questions at this point for each other? Maybe just jumping into that intro. So Sarah, how long has the organization been around then? Has it been...
So Crimestoppers was created in 1976 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was actually created, I like to brag that it's a Canadian invention, because the officer who created Crimestoppers is Canadian. He's from Picton, Ontario.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and he was working as a detective constable, excuse me, at a homicide that took place at a gas station in Albuquerque. Now, it was a pretty rough community at the time. There was a lot of high crime activity. And at that point, people were not forthcoming with information. They did not want to partner with the police. They did not want a cruiser, parked out front of their home and have their neighbors see that they were cooperating with investigators. So it was a young 20-year-old male who was killed, shot at point blank range. And after 6 weeks, there was no information forthcoming about this particular crime. Mm-hmm. So that's when Detective Greg McAleese got creative, and he reached out to his media partners, and he created the first cash reward of $300, which when I do this presentation, Renaldo, I know you'll appreciate this, when I tell youth that the first cash reward is $300, you can see the eyes roll, because $300 can't get you a decent gaming console anymore. But when I explain that like $300 in 1976 was like $1,000 today, and for someone to reach in their own pocket to create that cash reward for that first case is pretty impactful. And after doing that, within 72 hours, they had not only solved a number of cases because people jumped on this opportunity to provide information anonymously, they also solved this particular homicide. And these individuals had gone around to a number of convenience stores and gas bars in Albuquerque, and they were charged and arrested in relation to 6 other occurrences. So really from day one, it proved to be very impactful and had great results. As far as how long it's been in Ontario, we have the Hamilton program. It started I'm going to say like 1984, 85. I know
yeah.
the Guelph Wellington program was 1988, and we're celebrating our 35th year this year. So most
Wow.
programs are either 35, 40 years and around that stage. So we're embedded in the communities. And if people aren't familiar with their own Crimestoppers program, I really encourage them to look it up and get involved with the program.
Well, and I like the way you said embedded for sure. Absolutely. I'm hearing more and more about it and more public service announcements, if you will. And Sarah, I see you out there doing some of those announcements. And it's quite interesting just to hear people talk about it, table talk, actually, if you will, and in different circles that we travel, right? So it's very cool. Jack, have you heard of Crimestoppers before then? Or is this sort of a first opportunity to learn a little bit more about it?
It's my first time hearing about it.
Nice. Even better. Even better. So then you can shine light and share that knowledge with other people. And when we jump back to Yonge Street Mission, how long has that been around, Renaldo?
Oh boy. So Yonge Street Mission was founded in 1896.
Wow.
So yeah, so I think that makes us, I want to say 127 years old.
Oh
I
my
think,
goodness.
if my math
Wow.
is right. Yeah, yeah. So in the beginning, it really started out as more of a more relief services. So they were, basically just handing out food and sandwiches and milk from a gospel wagon rather. And over the years, it just evolved because it almost had to evolve with the changing times. So, for instance, in 1930, which I think is kind of when the Great Depression hit, they found an increase of need, and so they started to increase their donations. At that point, they had already purchased a building by which they were able to now serve meals and sandwiches from that building. And over time, it's really evolved over the years to where now we have, I don't even ask me the number of programs and services that we offer, but there's so much happening at Yonge Street Mission, from community outreach and development to a fully functioning daycare to case management support, the food bank, obviously everything that I mentioned through Evergreen services, the youth programs. So it's been around for a number of years, serving the Toronto community.
That's wild. And I've heard about it for a number of years, and I've known others that have, accessed the services through Yonge Street Mission. And so I had no idea it was that long. So I've done some research, but I didn't go back that far.
Yeah, I
That's
think the biggest thing is that it's really, so I think when people think about Yonge Street Mission, they often think about relief services. So they assume that, oh, it's a shelter, isn't it? Or it's a food bank, or it's a clothing bank. And while we're not a shelter, we don't have any shelter services. And we do have a food bank that we offer that really began to pick back up or really kickstart once the pandemic hit and the need grew in that area. But really, Yonge Street Mission now has become more of a place of holistic care, case management, wraparound care support. So it's really about really walking with individuals on a journey towards transformation. Because I think what we find is that nobody's journey is ever linear. You might take 4 steps forward, 3 steps back. You kind of go through the cycle at times like that. And so I think the thing with Yonge Street Mission, we pride ourselves on journeying with individuals or even families, regardless of where they may find themselves in their own personal journey. And so really that's kind of the big difference, is when people hear mission, they automatically think relief services, which we do offer a measure of that for sure to meet immediate needs. But we're not content with just leaving it there. We don't just want to meet their immediate needs. We want to make sure that they're able to move from a place of surviving to thriving. I really think that's probably everybody's goal, as we're all kind of working together to help those in need, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how you underscored that, Renaldo, and then walking with people, and it's ever changing our landscape and the things that we do in our daily lives. So it sounds like more of a family, really, access a family unit, if you will, with all these services that have come together to support an umbrella of support for all different services of society there. Wow.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think one of the aspects that we don't necessarily advertise per se,
Yeah.
but one of the aspects of what we do and one of the needs we've identified is really just the need for community. And
Yeah.
I think at Evergreen, the fortunate thing is that we've been able to provide that, just a safe space, but also safe community where they can have positive interaction both with peers and those in positions of authority that they haven't necessarily experienced in, in their past, or they'd be living in street involved situations. So we try to foster that aspect of community, positive and encouraging relationships, things of that nature. So yeah, we try to do our best to support every aspect of an individual's journey as best we can.
That's really cool. Do you mind if I ask? I didn't really write this down, but what are the hours of operation if you don't, if someone wanted to access services or reach out to anybody within the org itself? Is it is it 24/7 or is it daytime hours? Could you shine light on that?
Yeah, no, it's typically business hours, so 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. We do have people on call if need be, so you can always call one of our receptionist lines. The Evergreen services as well, so our youth services, same thing. The hours of operation are 9 to 5. Our drop-in is open from 12 until 5. The health center is open from 1 until 4.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And then we serve youth from ages 16 to 25 in that space.
Cool. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any questions for Renaldo at this point, and then vice versa, Sarah and Renaldo? Any questions for each other?
I just wanted to make a comment that in this day and age when things are really negative in the world, hearing about those services, that is so heartwarming, and to know that there's a place that people can go, and people are in need now more than ever before. So I don't know if it means much coming from me, but thank you for doing what you do, because that's really important now, I think, to give people hope and support in the ways that you are.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. It's funny, as you were talking, I was thinking, because so before I worked at Yonge Mission, I worked for other organizations. I did more community outreach work, so connecting with communities, working in priority neighborhoods, running youth programs out of those spaces, and oftentimes, unfortunately, sometimes we would go into the communities and we couldn't access the gym or the space that we would usually run our youth programs because it's taped off with caution tape, because a crime had just taken place, or unfortunately a murder had just taken place in the community, sometimes on the basketball court where the kids would play. And normally, and you would know this welfare, is the fact that it's hard to get anybody to speak up because it's this unwritten rule of you just don't say anything, right? You got to keep it to yourself. Even if you've seen it, even if you were the one who was the victim, you still wouldn't say anything. So I think having a service like Crimestoppers, one that, is able to fight for justice for the victims, but also maintain anonymity at the same time. Essentially what you're doing is providing a safe space for victims or witnesses to really come forward and to engage in that way. And so, what you're doing is extremely needed, because from what I've seen and the way I've seen people respond, knowing there's a service or there's an option out there for them is so important, so crucial. And I love the fact that it started by a Canadian. That's just my personal 2 cents. I like that.
Nice. And it's interesting because I'm thinking of you as guests. Sometimes we have panels with other guest speakers as well, but I thought it'd be kind of neat, kind of a crossover, really, I think, in many ways on conversations. So the work that you're both doing is incredible. And I think it's really important to shine the spotlight on the individual work that you do, but also the organization as well. It may seem like on opposite ends of the spectrum, but not really. In many ways, there's a lot of crossover. So no, that's really cool. Jack, any questions at all, or you want to keep on flying here in our conversation? You okay? Okay, I think I'm reading your lips. Awesome. Thank you, Jack. And so we're flying along here. We're doing Bell Let's Talk, Connect, Creating, and Inspiring, talking to amazing guest speakers about community resources. They're multi-talented. So thank you for bringing your knowledge to the table here today. Really appreciate it. And I wondered if you could take us a little bit more into a deeper dive. And I'm going to go back to you, Renaldo, if that's okay. Or pardon me, we know the mandate of your org, I believe, at this point. Would you say? Yeah? Would you want to expand upon the mandate and maybe a deeper dive into the organization?
I think the overall mission and ethos of Yonge Street Mission is really to alleviate chronic poverty in Toronto in our generation. So that's kind of all of our efforts, and all of our programs and services are geared towards the alleviation of chronic poverty in the city of Toronto. And so we do that by way of obviously relief services, some of our programs and care management supports, but also through advocacy as well. And so we really engage in advocacy work to see systemic change take place that oftentimes is perpetuating the issue of chronic poverty. And so we try to engage on all these different levels so that we can see a change come in the coming years. To kind of give a broad overview of kind of our mission statement, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about the various aspects of the program. I think did I cut you off there? No, you're okay.
No, still here. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't cut you off. You talked about the various aspects of the program, and you said the education component. There is a health component. That sounds like it's pretty complex. So it would take a lot of individuals to put on to walk us through a day, if you will, of the Yonge Street mission. So, is there like a board of directors, or how does that play out?
So yes, there's a board of directors. And then we have, obviously, we have our executive director, and then we have kind of our senior leadership team comprised of our vice presidents that oversee different areas of the organization. We have, I want to say, four buildings, I think. So most of our head office and most of our buildings are in the Gerrard and Parliament area. And then our Evergreen location is at College of Spadina.
Yeah.
And so along with all the services I mentioned, one of the buildings we have is also, we call it Genesis Place. Mm-hmm. And so it's really transitional housing that we have there. And so it's 26 units. At least 8 of those have become transitional units. And so those who move into those units, we try to provide them with case management supports and different things to help them in terms of, again, that stabilization, but also transitioning them into more permanent, stable housing. The challenge, obviously, is that, as everybody knows, we're facing a housing crisis in Toronto. So to transition them, sometimes it's like, what are you transitioning them onto? And so that's the point that we're kind of getting stuck. And I know that we've seen different, news articles and news announcements about, housing support and things of that nature. But internally, we try to support our clients with, obviously, we have a housing worker that works with all of our populations around housing. But we also have our transitional house called Genesis Place that we try to support individuals with as well.
Oh. And if there was something like a housing crisis then going on, and there's this transitional housing support going on through Genesis, do they then go on to cooperative housing thereafter because of the housing crisis going on?
I mean, it's different. Unfortunately, some do go on to more permanent housing or better housing situations. The challenge that it doesn't always work out for different reasons. And so sometimes they may find themselves, maybe back in the shelter system or back in a negative situation. And again, it's just because, as I mentioned before, nobody's journey is ever linear. And so even in those situations, we try to continue to journey with individuals and support them regardless of where they may find themselves. So it's tricky. I mean, everybody's facing the same challenges around housing that we are as we try to support individuals. Some of the best things we can do is partner with like-minded organizations around things of this nature, continue the work of advocacy to advocate for systemic change or to advocate for additional funding to support housing in the city of Toronto, and then try to support the individuals that we have within our housing program right now.
Do you feel comfortable to speak about systemic change? Yeah. Or that.
Yeah. So it's obviously it's very nuanced because there's various barriers that are facing different individuals. So when you think of youth, for instance, because obviously I work primarily with the youth population, there's various different barriers that are impacting youth right now. Outside of housing, there's also the aspect of youth mental health, which, Bell, let's talk. There's also the aspect of food insecurity when it comes to youth. There's also the aspect of their physical well-being. So there's various different things. And so I think what oftentimes we don't understand is that even though there's a lot of services to support young people, oftentimes there are barriers to accessing those services, whether it's geographical location, whether it's the way that priority neighborhoods are supported or the way that they're set up, whether it's funding support from the government or from the municipalities. And so I think it's really identifying what are those gaps, what are those barriers that exist, and coming up with strategic ways to address them. And I think oftentimes the challenge is that there's a gap between those who are on the ground doing the work and those who are the decision makers funding the work. And the decision makers oftentimes are making decisions without consultation, without collaboration with those that are on the ground. And so there tends to be a disconnect between, well, let's do this because this should work versus, okay, what are you hearing on the ground? What are the things that you're seeing? What's going to be most helpful and beneficial to the youth or to the individuals that you're serving? And how can we work together to see that come to pass? How can we include those individuals who are actually, have that lived experience? How can we include them in the decision-making process to see some of these barriers or systemic issues addressed in a more strategic and intentional way? And so I think there's conversations being had, but I'm not confident, or I'm not sure that they're the right conversations, or at least that the right individuals are at that table as those conversations are being had.
Thank you for that. Question for Renaldo at this point. I think, yeah. Okay, all right. Then I'm going to jump back to Sarah, and then Renaldo, give you a moment to kind of just catch your breath as well. And it's interesting because I'm just thinking about what I'm seeing from Yonge Street Mission is all of the linkages and the connections that are being made. And as you said, you're trying to reach, fill in the gaps, if you will. So that's what I'm getting from the programming. So anybody that's listening and tuning in, it would be worth a look, worth a referral, worth a resource search on Yonge Street Mission and all of the work that they're doing for sure, because that's what I'm hearing, that it's a program in progress, programs in progress, and a work in progress, always evolving. So, and trying to fill in, the gaps. Thank you very much. So I'll jump over to Sarah, and Sarah, I wonder if you can take us into a deeper dive in the outreach and all of the work that you do in the community as well.
Sure, and I actually think this dovetails nicely with the youth that maybe Renaldo is working with as well. A portion of the work that we do, specifically at Crimestoppers Guelph Wellington, is crime trend awareness and crime prevention. And because we don't work directly with victims of crime, we work with people who are maybe aware of crime and want to report it. We feel that we live up to our name by preventing crime from happening in the first place, and ideally stopping a crime and victimization from even occurring. That's optimal for us. So what that looks like is, we learned about the crime of human trafficking. Certainly it happened before 2017, but we were made aware of it in 2017, and we launched a human trafficking awareness campaign in the city of Guelph and county of Wellington. Now that was important because we know that being positioned near the 401, traffickers will often take their victims through our communities and will traffic them here, and also will relocate them from here. So that was something that we felt it was important. And we know that a lot of these types of crimes exploit people when they are vulnerable, whether it's youth or adults that are experiencing a hardship, a temporary upheaval in their lives. So we felt it was important to increase awareness around human trafficking. And more recently, we've moved into increased awareness around hate crime. And, in larger urban centers, people tend to be more open to the fact that it happens. And in rural areas, people think it doesn't happen, which is obviously not true. It can happen anywhere at any time. So that has also been part of our mandate, is to make sure that we're talking about emerging crimes, crimes that people are maybe misunderstanding or not fully comprehending the scope of the crime and how it impacts the victim. And we also work very closely with our local victim services chapter, because again, that idea of bookending, rather, the fact that if we can prevent a crime from happening, then there won't be a victim, exposed by that crime. So we feel very strongly that it's not just about reporting crime once it's happened; it's preventing crime from happening in the first place. And, for example, I'm going to be in a high school tomorrow doing 3 or 4 presentations on human trafficking awareness and how it ties, into their online engagement. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to be doing a cyber safety human trafficking seminar for families at a public school so that they understand and know what to look out for with their kids. We hand our children devices and say, here's a tablet or a cell phone. But we would never hand them the keys to a vehicle and set them out in the world, but we give the world access to them, through our digital devices. So Most times parents are pretty shocked by the information we share, and that's not our goal. We just want to enlighten people. But I think what it comes down to is most people don't understand really how much access and what predators are looking for online with our kids. So if we can prevent someone who, again, is having a vulnerable time, looking for connection, looking for support from becoming a victim of one of these crimes, then we're really doing our job then.
That's really cool. Any questions for Sarah at this point?
I had one.
Yeah.
So I know, first of all, that's amazing. I love the aspect of the preventative work that you're doing. So trying to stop the crime before it happens. And I think that's not something that most people, it's not something that I associate with Crimestoppers. Kind of like once the crimes happen, you're thinking you contact Crimestoppers, you want to remain anonymous, but the proactive approach to preventing the crime before it occurs is outstanding, especially as it pertains to sex trafficking. My question is, I know you said you're going to be doing a workshop with parents. Do you also do the workshops with youth themselves or with children, just kind of teaching around just, just safety around online presence, social media, things of that nature?
We do. Now, because we're not the police, we do try to partner with police for that messaging because they're the ones that see the front line, what predators are actually engaging with our young people. So, for example, I have a presentation that I'll deliver in partnership. We call it EPAC, Educate Parents and Children Together. So it would be parents or guardians, whoever their trusted adults are, in one room, say of a community center, and then we put the youth in another room of the community center, and I'll start the presentation with the adults and giving them messaging about what human trafficking is. Because again, there's such a disconnect. Most people don't understand, like you say, sex trafficking. They don't understand what that is. So we have that conversation with them. And in the other room with the young people, my colleague, one of our uniform members, will be talking to them about cyber safety, because they can talk about the latest techniques and that is something that they are experts in. So they have that conversation and then we switch audiences. So I will send the parents and guardians. At this point, they're pretty wound up because we've just told them some real truths, and then we ship them over to the police officer, and then I get the young people who fully understand why we are all talking about being careful online and showing them the connection between cyber safety and the human trafficking, sex trafficking factor. So that's something that we offer. I know the curriculum now in Ontario public schools is addressing human trafficking a little more directly, not so much in the last couple of years, but I know like last year and this year, they have been tackling it in the classroom, so we don't get quite as many requests for in-school presentations. But again, if you're in the Guelph, Wellington area and you want that presentation, we're happy to do that. And if you're in the GTA, I can absolutely connect you with your local Crimestoppers program that can give you that messaging.
Yes, please. That'd be great, because I think
awesome.
I think even just for us as workers who work with young people, just us we understand to some degree, but understanding what we should look out for, what we should be aware of, how we can support our youth as it pertains to protecting themselves. So yeah, if you could connect with any contacts here in the GTA, that'd be great.
Most definitely.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that.
That'd be amazing. Would you folks like to do that in the chat, or would you like to do that thereafter? Connect to your emails.
Yeah, I can do it in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, super duper. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And it's interesting you're talking about that, Sarah and Renaldo, because we had Louisa Kraus from Laura House on as a guest, who is part of the human trafficking, sex trafficking safe haven home. And in another end of the spectrum, we actually had an online dating doctor from Alberta on as well too, talking about that aspect. And we also connect with our local police officers and such with cybercrime and such. So it's really cool when I meet people like yourselves to hear that crossover and conversation and how we're all so interconnected in our communities. And it really does take a community to raise our youth, right? So it's amazing, all about learning and growing together. So thank you very much for that, both of you. We've kind of been talking about it, but we underscore mental health in our programming. How have you seen the mental health be affected these past few years on a daily basis with the work that you do? And who would like to take that first? I'm seeing.
I could go first.
Okay.
Yes, I think so. Obviously, mental health has always existed as it pertains to young people. I think it's been whether it's exacerbated or highlighted since the pandemic. I think we've seen a lot more. I think because of the isolation, I think because of lack of job opportunities that have come, because of the financial climate and the economic climates that people are facing. So I think when you think of the fact of being isolated for so long, for the past 2-3 years, however long the pandemic lasted, when you think of now that they're trying to start their lives over again post-pandemic, but trying to start your lives, you're starting to realize it's a struggle to get a job, and if you can get one, you can barely make a living wage, and then it's hard to find suitable housing or with that living wage that you're now making. And so all of this impacts their mental health drastically. And so oftentimes you'll see youth tend to turn to different means by which to survive, whether that's being precariously housed, whether it's some who are engaging in criminal activity as a way of making ends meet or a way of supporting themselves better. And as a result, all of these things impact the mental health. It can also lead to traumatic situations that they find themselves in. So now they're dealing with trauma on top of an existing mental health issue. So it's kind of compounding since the pandemic, I would say, and it's really been highlighted a lot more than ever. Mm. And so it's definitely, and I greatly appreciate the support. I appreciate the Bell Let's Talk and what you're doing here, Lynn, as we're kind of really addressing it in a very intentional way, because I think it is something that isn't going away anytime soon. And I think being able to, one, give safe spaces to address it, to talk about it, to share about it. I think also giving resources, tips, best practices of how to manage and navigate your mental health. I think one thing that's been encouraging to me, just to tell a brief story, I was in the drop-in, this was a few months ago, and I always try to, there's always a lot of meetings on this. I'm hosting a lot of meetings and doing a lot of admin and reports, but I always try to make time in the drop-in in the afternoons if I can. And so usually I'm in the drop-in, I might be just playing a game of pool with one of the youth. And so I was just talking with a few of the youth who were there, these 3 young men. And I think one of them had just come from seeing one of our mental health counselors, one of our clinical counselors. And, he was talking about having a conversation, and him and another individual wound up encouraging the other one, said, "You don't see a counselor? Like, what's wrong with you? You got to take care of your mental health." And they were almost scolding him for not seeing a counselor and not being willing to see a therapist, because they themselves have come to understand the benefits and the need for mental health support and seeing a therapist or a counselor to get that support. So I thought that was amazing to see, because it's not coming from me, it's not coming from the worker, but it's their peers themselves who have identified the need for it and encouraging the other one, hey, get your mental health checked, like take this thing seriously. So that for me was a sign or a picture that the narrative, I think, around mental health is starting to shift a bit, especially around young people, where it's no longer taboo or it's no longer, stigmatized, but it's becoming almost a surprise if you're not engaging in some form of mental health support. So I thought that was really cool to see.
That is cool. No, thanks for that share. Really appreciate that. Thank you. And Sarah, what about yourself?
Well, when it comes to mental health, Crimestoppers, that's not really our wheelhouse. But the one thing I would say is we do liaise with a number of community organizations. So whether it's victim services, women in crisis. One example I can give was I was recently at a roundtable meeting with a representative from Family and Children's Services, Victim Services, as well as our local emergency room intake lead. And we were all just kind of discussing more in a casual, informal way about, things such as like our interactions with people in general, and how there seems to be a lot of stress, a lot of people that are reacting to things that maybe they wouldn't react that way normally. And I kind of shared, Sarah's observation, which is, I think, just with everything that's happened the last several years, to Renaldo's point, that there's been so much that society as a whole has experienced, and certainly, some our communities have experienced that, depending on where you fall, experienced it in a different way. Not everyone has been in the same boat in the same storm. I believe that. But we've all had some kind of experience that has see us come through the other side changed. And I think societally, it'll be interesting to look back on this time and see how we've come out of it and what our viewpoint is, how we interact with each other, because these agencies that work directly with victims, and again, that's not what Crimestoppers does, but they're seeing more victimization, they're seeing more profound impacts, whether it's something subtle like an interaction between students in a classroom, to something broader like, more profound mental health challenges. And I think that's something, it's a combination between awareness of, exactly what you were saying with those peers suggesting that he get mental health supports. There's more acceptance of that. But also there's more need, and I think probably more need than ever before. So, hopefully people are getting the supports they need. And like I say, that's more from Sarah. That's not from Crimestoppers. I just want to be clear on that. But it was just an observation in dealing with other agencies that everyone is experiencing some kind of increase when it comes to mental health or anxiety or stress within the population that they serve.
And, to both of your points, I think it's really important for young people to see that we're doing our own mental health checks as well, too, as adults and as leaders in our communities. That's, what are we mirroring for our youth, right? So, to your point, and from Sarah's perspective, and in this case, Renaldo's perspective, but also the work that you do on the ground. So thank you. Very cool. So I'm just going to move along. We've got a few more questions. We have about 10 more minutes for any folks that are tuning in. And I just wanted to touch base once again on the community partners and supporters. And I'm just going to jump over to you, Renaldo. Who are your supporters and partners, whether it be financially or anybody that's helping you along with programming? Anybody you can underscore, highlight for us, so we just get a sense of where all that comes from.
Yeah, it'd be challenging to name all of our supporters. So we are, we're privately funded. So a lot of, so we have a very phenomenal, outstanding philanthropy team, and so they actually raise a lot of support and funds and donations to support the work that we do at Yonge Street Mission. We also do have, we do get some funding from municipal, provincial, and federal government, particularly as it pertains to some of our employment programs.
Oh yeah.
So that's one aspect. So funding is it comes from a little bit of everywhere in that respect. In terms of partners for the work that we do have partnerships with CAS. So we do have a really strong, good partnership with them as we provide space and also some case managers to support, young families who are trying to kind of be reconciled and be united and have that kind of safe space time with each other. We also have partnerships with YMCA as well that come in to run some of our alcohol addictions programs. I'm trying to think. There's so many partnerships.
So many, yeah.
Yeah, so because each program has their own individual partners that they work with to support that work, or to come in and run certain programs or workshops and things like that. And so we do have some dealings with the city. The city also funds some of our programs pertaining to justice involved youth. So we work very closely with justice involved youth, and so the city helps to fund that as well. So it's a little bit of everything. I don't know if I could round all of them off, but
that's all right.
City of Toronto, CAS, YMCA. I'm going to definitely forget some, but those are the ones top of the.
We'll have to do our own research. So for that,
that's it.
Yeah, but that's that. Thank you for generally speaking there, and that covers some of the ones that are coming to the table for you and showing up. And for anybody listening and tuning in, if you want to show up for the Yonge Street Mission, there are ways to go about that, and perhaps we can find out. And actually, Sarah, you've mentioned some of your supporters, but the fundraising is very important for you, right?
Yeah, support for Crimestoppers looks a little different. It can be fundraising, and that could be someone in the community supporting a local fundraiser for their Crimestoppers program. Mm-hmm. In Guelph, Wellington, we also have support from our police partners. So, for example, I'm an OPP civilian assigned to Crimestoppers, so there's no cost for wages in the program. So all the funds raised in Crimestoppers Guelph Wellington go toward the operation of the program and paying tipster rewards. So that's, trying to keep that low overhead as a not-for-profit organization is so important. But there's other supports for our program, specifically how the program was started, which is our partnerships with media outlets throughout our areas, making sure that the awareness of the program and the crimes that we're trying to solve are available to the community through our public outlets. And frankly, this is what we're doing today. This is a media partnership right now. Also our police partners, the fact that, they're the ones that have to investigate the tips that come to us. There's no point in having Crimestoppers if we don't have a relationship with those who are going to lay charges, that type of thing. So that's a key partnership as well. But you're absolutely correct. Funding is huge. So of course, anything that goes through policing is the Ministry of the Solicitor General. There's also grants that we apply for regularly. Whether it's a United Way grant or a ministry grant or a local Rotary Club grant, we try to get out there and get funding to do these new initiatives and make sure that we can keep the program current and in front of the community at all times.
Cool. If anybody wanted to volunteer or get involved in the organization, we've got a couple more questions before we wrap up. Let us know how they can do that. And whoever wants to take it first, since you're talking right now, Sarah, I could have you mention that or address that.
Sure. So there's a couple of ways to get involved with Crimestoppers. If you're looking to be a member of our board of directors, each program has a website that you can reach out to them and get more information. It is an application process. It is also a working board. So when people join us, there are goals, objectives that need to be met. It's not really a social club, and that's not to slam social clubs, but there are business plans and things like that, strategies that have to be achieved. So we want to make sure that people that are joining us are purpose driven. And also they have to clear a criminal background check. So making sure that that's something that is attainable for you. That's one way to get involved. We also have volunteers that come out to our various events. If you're a student looking for volunteer hours, we're a great option for you as well. We have a lot of students that come out and support us at our various fundraising events, and we're happy to sign off on those hours. So there's also, if you're looking to whether it's donate funds or in-kind donations, Crimestoppers being a charitable organization, for those looking for tax donation receipts, we can do that for you as well. So just reach out to your local program. And if you're not sure where your local Crimestoppers program is, you can go to the Ontario Crimestoppers website, which is ontariocrimestoppers.ca, and all of the programs throughout Ontario are listed there, so you can find the one nearest you.
Amazing. I'll make sure to also put that in the text when we post the video as well later. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. And Renaldo, what about yourself? If someone wanted to volunteer, reach out, or even apply for work, if they have so much to give to Yonge Street Mission, how would they do that?
So everything goes through our website. So it's www.ysm.ca. And if anyone is interested in volunteering, so if you go to, I think it's Get Involved, there's a tab at the top that says Get Involved. Then if you scroll down, click on Volunteer, there's a website called Volunteer Hub. And then you can select the day, the time, the location that you'd like to volunteer. So at my location at Evergreen, we take volunteers every day in the kitchen, helping to prepare meals. At other locations, they ask for volunteers in the food bank, or we have a thrift store called Double Take. So oftentimes our volunteers help out there when it comes to sorting clothes. We also take placement students from different educational institutions. So we have placement students who will come and they'll actually do their placement in different programs across the Yonge Street Mission, helping to support some of the work that we do there as well. And when it comes to career opportunities, there's also a link on the website as well to some of the current job postings that are open within the organization.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we're wrapping up the conversation for Bell Let's Talk, but we would like to get some words of wisdom from our guest speakers, because I know they're very wise and they've shared their time with us today. So I'll go back to Sarah, and then I'll give Renaldo the final comments as well before we wrap up. And if you wanted to reach out, I'll make sure to post the links for Renaldo and Sarah in our text and our video. But obviously they're doing amazing work. So I encourage you to reach out to them both and do some investigation. And as I guess Sarah was talking about, in terms of if they're not aware of it, do a little search on Crimestoppers Ontario and get some more information about that. Okay, so Sarah, words of wisdom. Words of wisdom moving forward. It can be just from you, Sarah, or from Crimestoppers. Your final comments for our listeners and viewers.
Just to remind people that they shouldn't hold back if they have a bit of information. A lot of times people think, well, I don't know enough. I don't know if what I saw will be helpful. We never know what information will assist an investigator. So we encourage you to bring forward any information that you may have about any crime you may have witnessed, heard, anything that you feel could help with an investigation. And again, you can go and call that information in anonymously and confidentially at 1-800-222-TIPS, which is 8477. Or you can go to the Ontario website, ontariocrimestoppers.ca. If you're in the Guelph, Wellington area, it's csgw.tips. And this is always anonymous. You are always confidential. There is no way for us to track and find out who you are. And if your information leads to an arrest, you may qualify for a cash reward of up to $2,000.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you very much, Sarah. And Renaldo, final comments, words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom. Something that I always tend to say, and something I really truly believe, is that you can never underestimate the power of the simplest act by one individual. I think sometimes when you think of some of the problems that we just finished discussing on this call, whether it's alleviation of poverty, whether it's preventing crimes before they occur, whether it's mental health, sometimes these issues can seem so massive and so insurmountable. We think, well, what could I possibly do? I'm just one individual. And so because it seems so overwhelming, we tend not to do anything, because say, what can I do that would actually have an impact? And I would argue that. I would say that the simplest act by one individual can have the biggest impact. Sometimes it's just speaking up in a certain conversation, a certain context, or advocating for something that you know is right, or advocating for the ending or alleviation of poverty. You never know who's at that table listening to what you have to say, who's going to be massively impacted by what you said and actually start to act on change. Or, that conversation, like I just mentioned, of the young person saying, hey, you should really get mental health support. You have no idea what that could do for that one individual and for his circle if he actually pursues that. And so actually, or even just the individual on the street who you're just like, let me just go and buy this individual a coffee and a sandwich, as opposed to just passing by that day. You have no idea what it's going to do in that moment for them. So my encouragement to everyone is always to go with that first instinct. Never think, well, I'm just one person, what can I do? The simplest, the smallest act can have a massive impact, or even a huge ripple effect that we won't even realize until years later. And so my encouragement is always to act on those instincts. Don't sit back on the sidelines, but take the first step, take the simplest act, and see what happens.
Wow, that's amazing from both of you. Just humbled to be spending the time with you today, and really want to do a shout out to Moksha Canada Foundation for allowing us to be here in this safe space. As you both have mentioned, how important it is for our young people to have an opportunity to be in a safe space to explore these parts of conversation. I wanted to also do a shout out to Jack for being here once again. He's just jumped out of the room there, but I thank you, Jack, for being here. And again, thank you for Bell Let's Talk and Youth Connections Café. Renaldo Wall from the Yonge Street Mission, and Sarah Bowers-Peter from Crimestoppers Wellington, Guelph, Wellington. Thank you so much. Very grateful for you both being here today. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much, Lynn. Thanks a lot, Sarah.
Thank you.